In one of my earlier editorial comments, I talked about things like volcanoes, earthquakes, the ring of fire. What's going on is the world itself is starting to move. Our planet is a group of plates, large plates, upper plates, lower plates. Our planet is not a solid entity. It's got parts and it moves. And as it moves, it creates, well, volcanoes, earthquakes, all sorts of bad stuff. And I've talked about that, but I want to talk about one in particular that affects the United States of America. And it's located in the state of Washington. Now, in my youth, I lived in the state of Washington, a little town called Ferndale up near the Canadian border. And there was a mountain near us called Mount Baker. And that was part of the chain of volcanoes that existed. But there's one big one in the state of Washington, which is the tallest, measures 14,410 feet. It's probably the biggest in the Cascades. It's called Mount Rainier. Now, the Indians called it Tahoma, which is probably where they came up with the name of Tacoma, Washington, those kind of things. But Mount Rainier is located between, well, right around Seattle and Tacoma. And if you take a look at the pictures and see what it looks like from Seattle, you can plainly see the mountain. Seattle, Tacoma area, yep, plainly see the mountain. It's legendary. It's there what it is. Famous mountain. But folks, it's a volcano. And they have in the last, well, few weeks, months, they've been suffering a massive number of earthquakes right in the area of that volcano. Something is going on. And I mean, if you take a look at the seismograph, they can tell you there's hundreds of earthquakes that are going on underneath that mountain. Well, that mountain may do the same thing that Mount Helens did back in 1980. Remember Mount St. Helens? Remember what it did back in 1980 when it blew up? Killed a whole lot of people, did a whole lot of damage. And literally, when it went, it created what they call lahars. Now you're going to go, okay, what's a lahar? Well, a lahar is a fast-moving river, mud flow, debris flow, call it what you will. It comes down because you see all that ice and snow that accumulates on the top of those mountains like Rainier. That heat of that eruption evaporates that all rather quickly. And you all knew what happened over in central Texas when they had the big rainstorms, and suddenly those areas of the Texas hill country, the valleys up there, suddenly fill with water, and it created huge, almost landslides of water coming down. Places where water hadn't been in many, many, many years. Comes down. Lahars are essentially the same thing, and the geological people have been plotting those out, saying, hey, if that mountain blows, it's going to create lahars that are epic, things that move at 40 to 50 miles an hour. They can be as much as 500 feet deep. You see a wall of water coming down 500 feet, you ain't got a chance. They've mapped it out and take a look at this. This is where they think the lahars could go. These are down the valleys. People live in those areas. And there's thousands and hundreds of thousands of people. Seattle, Tacoma, it's a big area, folks. There's a lot of people there. And anything like Mount Rainier blowing, and it could happen, not saying that it won't, but nobody thought Mount St. Helens would blow up, and it certainly did. And look what it did in the middle of, well, Washington, nowhere. Mount Rainier is not in the middle of nowhere in the state of Washington. It's right in a very, very highly populated area. And those little lahars kick in, and all those giant streams and debris and everything else flowing down, it's going to be like a flood like no one has ever seen. And I'm not sure what could happen, but the people in Seattle and Tacoma have been warned, are continuously being warned by their local broadcast affiliates, by the meteorological service, the weather people. They're all watching this. They're all seeing this. Now, if you live there, you know what people are talking about. People are seeing the seismograph reports all the time, saying this place is rumbling. Something's going on. Is Rainier going to belch? Rainier going to have an extrusion? A big one? Nobody really knows, but volcanoes are happening around the Pacific Rim. And that part of the world, on that coastline, that's part of the Pacific Rim because you've got Mount Rainier, Mount Baker, and a few other mountains in that area that are all in the same volcanic line, stress line, call it what you will. But if that lets go, God help the people in those towns. I don't know what people are going to do, and I don't know what they're currently doing. But it's something to be concerned about, because Mother Nature is moving the planet around in ways that we haven't seen in hundreds, maybe thousands of years. And with that movement comes the potential for eruptions. And if eruption were to happen in the United States, probably right now the biggest place everybody's looking at is one big mountain in the state of Washington called Tacoma, 14,410 feet. You know it as Mount Rainier, and the people in Seattle and Tacoma know it is a pending danger.